It's time!
Here it is, guys, the moment that we have been waiting for. The rematch that we have waited to happen finally goes down in chapter 172 of Tokyo Ghoul. The King versus the Jester finally begins. This right here, guys, was an excellent chapter that we got this week for Tokyo Ghoul. And the best sentence that I can use to describe this chapter as a whole is that we see one king fall, and yet we see another king arise. We see Donato Porapora, the crown, the leader of the clown organization, meet his demise in this week's latest chapter, and I have a feeling that this is going to be met with mixed feelings depending on how you view Donato's character. Some people might be content and satisfied with the way that he went out. Other people might have expected that he would have gone out in a grander scheme. But I don't think you can deny that this little epilogue moment we had between Amon and Donato was a fitting end to their relationship, but also to their character arcs as a whole. So there's going to be some interesting things to talk about with Donato and Amon. But on the other side of the spectrum, we see the rise in our one-eyed king, Ken Kaneki, in the ending sections of this chapter. He is just oozing confidence. He is not speaking a single word to Furuta as he is trying to take him out as quickly as possible. And Furuta is up to his old shenanigans. He's trolling, he's acting all weak and minuscule, but he can pack a punch, as it is demonstrated very well near the ending of this chapter. But I think we all are excited, but cautious going into this fight between Kaneki and Furuta, because we do not want to walk into chapter 173 and see Kaneki flat on his ass, missing his arms and legs, to where he lost in this fight against Furuta, because at that point, what was the point of the past 30 chapters of character development? Kaneki has to win in this scenario, otherwise building up his character, having him change, would have been met with nothing. But I have faith in Ishida that he's going to deliver upon us some great action between these two, because it feels like the final boss fight for Tokyo Ghoul, and we desperately need to see Furuta get his ass whooped. So guys, with all that being said, let's dive in and talk about chapter 172. And immediately on the first page, you can tell that Ishida is giving us an epilogue-like moment between the characters of Donato and Amon, very similar to what he did last chapter with Renji and Uta. And I'm glad that he did this for both of these parties involved. Though I can honestly say, walking into the beginning of this chapter, I was not expecting Donato to be a severed head and talking to Amon for the remainder of this chapter. To think that Amon's attack with that gigantic sword was so powerful that he just obliterated from the neck down Donato's body. I just find that very impressive. And we even have Nico walking up to this head, and he's like, oh, the crown lost, might as well start healing it. But Amon walks right up, stops him from healing the head. He's like, no, no, no. Donato is dying right here. Give me a moment of time with this man. And what transpires as the conversation unfolds between Amon and Donato is very interesting, because Donato is trying to tell Amon in some strange way that his original viewpoint that all ghouls are pure evil, that viewpoint was correct, because he begins to tell Amon that the person he knew, Donato Porapora, he was every bit the villain you knew him to be. And he begins to hammer this home by relishing and bragging about how he ate and consumed all the children at the orphanage, and he enjoyed it. That he embraced his evil even further once he was anointed as the leader of the clown organization. And now looking down on what is transpiring on the streets of Tokyo with the apocalyptic event of Dragon, he could care less on how many people die and how many people turn into ghouls. He is viewing this like tilling a field, like tending to the crops. This is necessary. And he is curious, honestly, to see how this is going to unfold, because he knows man is cunning. Give it time, man will return. But in all honesty, the more that die, the better. But Donato knows that he is not long for this world. He is about to die. And even though he's not going to live long enough to see this bountiful reaping unfold, he's kind of proud in a way, knowing that this paragon of justice embodied within Amon was the person to kill him in the end. He kind of views it as poetic, and he's like, this is a perfect end for me, wouldn't you say? And he just starts laughing to himself. But Amon interrupts Donato's laughter by reminding him of all the good stuff he did for them while at the orphanage, how he used to bring them donuts, how he used to bring them blankets on cold nights, and how he helped bury a dog that they brought in that all the children looked after. And Donato's listening to this, he's like, you know, I killed every single child a part of that we. What are you, feeling nostalgic, Amon? And Amon's like, yeah, I am, because my memories back at the orphanage are terribly dear to me. Even though I know exactly who you are, a villain, a ghoul, a mass murderer, how can you blame me? How can you fault a son for loving his father? That line right there is so powerful, and you can see the shocked look on Donato's face, and then he just begins to laugh until he dies. But this section right here, the shocked look on his face, I'm very curious on what caught Donato off guard, if it was in fact the dialogue, or if it was the fact that Amon called Donato his father, because I am very curious if Amon actually ever referred to Donato as his true father, because that is some heavy words right there, and there's a lot of emotion put behind Amon calling a ghoul, Donato Pora Pora, his father. And the fact that we see Donato crying while laughing in this moment just goes to show how impactful those words from Amon were for Donato in this situation, because we already know that Donato has always viewed Amon as his son. When you go back to the orphanage, he always treated him differently and always treated him special. Case in point being that he killed all the other children at the orphanage, but he always kept Amon around. He always kept him safe because he viewed him as his son and always turned his view away whenever he tried to relish in his ghoul tendencies. And I think for him, even though he viewed Amon as his son, he knew that this human who would grow up to hate him and despise him would never end up calling him his father. But here we are now in this moment where Amon is staring down at Donato, a ghoul himself, and he's referring to him as his father. This is a beautiful moment to end the character arc, the character journey that we have been on with these two characters of Donato and Amon. Even though some people might feel mixed about how Donato is going out in this way, you cannot deny that this is a beautiful send-off for his character as he is crying and laughing at this situation where a human who despised ghouls for the longest time is able to push that away and even call a ghoul his own father. Beautiful moment. Ishida crafted this very, very well. I personally would have liked to see more from Donato, but I cannot deny that this is a beautiful send-off for Donato's character. So from here, we cut away from Donato and Amon, and we end up going into two very brief sections dealing with Toka and Psycho, and also the taxidermied owl. I love getting to see Toka pop up in this chapter, though it be very, very brief, but the fact that she is sticking by Psycho's bedside is very cool to see. Toka and Psycho, best girls of the series, but when it comes to that one panel, dealing with the taxidermied owl, I am very curious about that panel because I kind of assumed that if Donato was taken out and dealt with, the taxidermied owl would kind of be left incapacitated, would kind of die and cease movement. But kind of based on the dialogue, it kind of seems like it's still moving, they're trying to pursue it still, or maybe it ended up falling down and then they're trying to pursue the V organization. I don't really know what's going on in that particular panel, but I think we'll find out in the future chapters to come. But from here, this is where we dive into the next section, the last section of this chapter that everyone has been waiting to get to. The King versus the Jester, the One-Eyed King versus King Troll himself, Kaneki versus Furita, and the troll himself is at it again. Many Many of us were wondering how this confrontation was going to go once Kaneki and Furuta ran into each other once again. And at first in this chapter, it goes as you expect it would go, with Furuta acting shocked and theatrical and just running his mouth the entire time, basically looking at Kaneki and like, huh, you're still alive, Kaneki. You were supposed to be an offering to Dragon, but you're still kicking, aren't you, Kaneki? So tell me, why are you here? You here for some crazy shit? You're not gonna talk back to me? You're not gonna say anything? And he just keeps running his mouth. But Kaneki, my boy Kaneki, has been through 30 chapters of character development. He is a new man now, and he is tired of Furuta's bullshit. And all we see from Kaneki is him launching his Kagane straight at Furuta. It zooms past him, knocks off the gas mask, and Furuta was not expecting that. He just goes, okay, you're here for some crazy shit then. But don't you know you're supposed to talk before we attack? Haven't you ever seen Shonen? Like, you have a lot to say to me, right? Like, how could you do this? Why would you do this? But Kaneki is like, I'm not a part of Shonen. I'm in a seinen. And badassly just replies back to him, don't care. And Furuta's like, so serious. I love this moment because we were expecting development for Kaneki's character, because 30 chapters ago, from the moment he turned into Dragon, talked with Rize in that dreamlike state, got extracted, and now has the organs that make him immune to the RC virus within the air, we were hoping he was going to go through character development and was not going to make the same mistakes that he did last time. And we are seeing the fruits of those developments, because right now, Kaneki is being ruthless. He does not care. He's like, I want to get rid of you as quickly as possible. That way I can get back to my beautiful wife. So we see Kaneki continuously attacking Furuta with his Kagane, trying to end him as quickly as possible. And Furuta's running away from this, and we see the return of the infamous or famous Nemu dash, made famous by Furuta himself, and he begins to monologue in his head, which is a great moment in this chapter. But then we have this piece of dialogue that says, I'm getting deja vu. And when you go to the next page, you see Furuta scared and being a coward against the wall, being like, Kaneki, don't kill me. I'm an insignificant insect. Don't come after me. Do not stain your regal hands with my blood. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, we did see this, something similar to this before with Furuta. It was back during Cochlea when Eto was chasing Furuta. We had the same thing go down with Furuta, where he was scared, acting like a coward, and then caught Eto off guard and decimated Eto with his powers, with his Kagane. And we kind of see the same thing unfold in this chapter when we see Kaneki try to go in for that kill, and Furuta just screams, stop. And we have this epic double page spread of this massive Kagane coming out of the wall and attacking Kaneki. Now, I don't know 100% whose Kagane that actually was. It could have been Furuta's Kagane, Rize's Kagane, or it's actually the Dragon Kagane itself acting as a defense mechanism for Furuta, defending him against any oncoming threats. That's my best bet right there, because we really don't see this Kagane coming out of Furuta's body itself. So I would say that that is the Dragon Kagane defending Furuta against Kaneki. But once this happens, a switch just goes off in Furuta's head, and he just starts lolling in his mind. He is just laughing maniacally, and he's like, man, oh man, you do not change, Kaneki. You came down here alone. You are a hoodlum. You are a blundering, blithering idiot. When are you going to learn from your mistakes? And then we have this pretty creepy image of Furuta smiling as he takes out his sword, and he's like, here's a little secret. I'm actually pretty strong, you know, and he just grins and his eyes are squinting real tiny. And there is a tarot card number in here, which I will get to in a little bit. But then we make our way to the final page of this chapter, where we see Kaneki rising back up, and we see his hands start to move, and he just stares back at Furuta and cracks his knuckle. And you know, every TG fan got hyped, and you're like, shit's about to go down. This right here is the beginning of the fight between Kaneki and Furuta, the king versus the jester, and I am just hoping that Ishida does not troll us and cut away this fight entirely. I want Kaneki to beat Furuta into submission. This is a long time coming, and I am hoping that Ishida can provide us maybe 5 chapters or even 10 chapters. I do not care. I want a good length of chapters just seeing Kaneki wrecking Furuta's ass, because Kaneki right now needs a win under his belt. He already has one down there because he married Toka. That is a big win for him, but he needs to beat Furuta right here, right now, because this man has been pulling the strings the entire time throughout this series, and he needs someone to put him in his place, and I am hoping that time is now. And based on that number, that tarot card number on Furuta's body that we kind of see on the second to last page, this might be indicating on what we might be getting for this fight, and that we are approaching the conclusion of Tokyo Ghoul. So if you look at Furuta's body on the second to last page, you can see a number that either resembles a 6 or a 9, depending on how you view it, whether you flip it or position it properly. And when you look at the descriptions for the tarot card numbers of 6 or 9, both of these descriptions can somehow fit into describing what could transpire moving forward in this fight, but also could indicate the conclusion of Tokyo Ghoul, the series. So when you read the description of tarot card number 6, it states, 6 is a card of the self, but not in a selfish way. It tends to indicate focus on self in order to transcend problems and see new solutions. Many 6s indicate a period of adjustment and tweaking in order to align with one's higher goals, overcoming obstacles through determination and willingness to change, empowering oneself. And the Tarot 9 description reads, and Tarot 9 speaks of the completion of one course of events occurring as something else is just getting started. When 9s appear with frequency, it indicates the past is on the way out, but the future direction hasn't been decided, so there's a bit of flux or transition period in progress. Sometimes this leads to people feeling more anxious due to uncertainty. So based on these two descriptions, I kind of feel that both could be applied to this scenario depending on how you are viewing it. 6 can actually show that overcoming the obstacle is Furuta. Kaneki needs to overcome Furuta in this situation. But also if it was a 9, I could also see that as indicating this is like the final boss fight of Tokyo Ghoul. Maybe this is Kaneki finally reaching the ending of his journey, and once he takes out Furuta, we will finally reach like the conclusion of this series, and things will start getting back to normal, and eventually Tokyo Ghoul will end. So I am very curious to hear what you guys think. Is this a 6 or a 9? Do you guys think this is a tarot card number at all? Or was this just a design by Ashita just to throw in there for shits and giggles and just be like, these guys thinks it's a tarot card number? That is so funny. So I am very curious to hear your guys' thoughts. But that's basically it for this review on Tokyo Ghoul chapter 172. This was an excellent chapter. Definitely a good epilogue for Donato and Amon, but I loved everything that went down with Furuta and Kaneki, and I am just hoping that Kaneki now has the resolve and the character development built up within him to finally take down Furuta. So with all that being said, guys, that is the end of my review for chapter 172. I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts on this chapter, your positives, your negatives, your favorite moments and standout moments from this chapter. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you guys want to talk more about this chapter or just Tokyo Ghoul in general, feel free to follow me on Twitter. A link for my Twitter can be found in the description below. I talk about Tokyo Ghoul, My Hero, and anything else I feel like talking about. I would love to share that with all of you guys, so link in the description. But that's going to do it for me, guys. So until next week when we have chapter 173 of Tokyo Ghoul, I'll see you guys next time.